Questions without notice. The member for Dunkley.
Marion from Carrum Downs called my office furious when she heard the Prime Minister say the vaccination rollout was not a race. For Marion, it's a race. It's a race to see her husband again in aged care. It's a race to protect herself after her battle with breast cancer. Why has the Prime Minister failed Australians like Marion with his vaccine rollout?
The Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd be very pleased to receive further details so we can extend our care and support to the constituent that you've referred to, as she particularly is facing these difficult days ahead with her treatment as cancer sufferers around the country, Mr. Speaker. This is a very difficult time, no doubt, for them, and as these other issues are impacting the nation, I can understand how that can add further distress, Mr. Speaker. It is very important that we move as quickly as we possibly can and as effectively and as safely as we can to vaccinate as many Australians as possible, Mr. Speaker. As quickly as possible. That is the comments that I've said, Mr. Speaker. It's those that our health advisors have said also. Mr. Speaker, today we received the news that over 700,000 Australians have been vaccinated in the past week. Over 130,000 Australians in one day, Mr. Speaker. They are record numbers again. Mr. Speaker, in the course of the past month, the rate of vaccination in this country amongst eligible Australians has increased by over 100%, Mr. Speaker. It's doubled. It's doubled in the course of the past month. Some 2 million in the first 66 days, Mr. Speaker, a further 2 million in the next 30 days. And the changes that were introduced as I drew National Cabinet together, Mr. Speaker, back in April to put the plan in place, Mr. Speaker, that ensured that we increased the vaccination rates in this country has been effective, because we've seen the vaccination rates double, Mr. Speaker, over the course of the past month. Now, Mr. Speaker, it is important for all Australians to roll up their sleeve on this project, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are seeing more and more Australians roll up their sleeve. Mr. Speaker, the state premiers, together with the chief ministers and myself, the members of my government, Mr. Speaker, those
the member for
right
Patterson
across the
will
country.
resume her seat.
Mr. Speaker, it is
the
incredibly
Prime Minister
important.
will resume his seat. I asked the member for Patterson to leave under Standing Order 94A. On her way out, she interjected yet again. Does she know that that is highly disorderly and usually results in a naming? Does the member for Patterson wish to apologise to the House?
I apologise, Mr. Speaker, wholeheartedly.
And you can now leave under 94A. That is the last time I will do that. I'm very happy later in question time, if this arises again, to explain the practice and to explain how I've been lenient on that occasion. I've done that so as not to disturb question time for the vast bulk of members who aren't interjecting, but I'll have no choice if members think they can backchat the chair on the way out. It's not going to happen. It's disrespectful to the rest of you, and it's unbecoming of an elected member of parliament. The Prime Minister has the call.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So we must move forward quickly and effectively and safely, Mr. Speaker. The remarks that I have made on this matter back in March, Mr. Speaker, reflected the remarks made by Queensland Health when they said on the 3rd of March this is not a race. The AMA President on the 10th of April, it is not a race to the finish line, Mr. Speaker, and the 10th of March by Professor Murphy. Professor Murphy, Mr. Speaker, with whom I wholeheartedly agree, Mr. Speaker, made further comments yesterday which I also agree with. So, Mr. Speaker, rather than the opposition getting into arguments about words, Mr. Speaker, perhaps they'd like to support the government. Support the government,
Prime
Mr.
Minister
Speaker.
will resume his seat. Prime Minister resume his seat. The Manager of Opposition Business. Members on my right. The Manager of Opposition Business on a point of order.
On direct relevance, Mr. Speaker, this is about a woman wanting to be able to see her husband again, who is a cancer survivor. And for that to be ridiculed as being an objection about words is offensive and irrelevant to the question that was asked.
Members on both sides. The Prime Minister has the call. I'm giving the...
Mr Speaker, I reject what the member incoming the dispatch box. I was referring to the comments about a race, Mr Speaker. I already extended my great sympathies, Mr Speaker, to the constituent in question, as the member should know. Mr Speaker, the opposition can continue to play politics with the vaccination program, or they can support the national effort. Over the course of this pandemic, Mr Speaker, the opposition has sought to play politics with the pandemic, and they should be ashamed of that, Mr Speaker. We will get on with it.
The member for Herbert.